Hey, what's up?
Hey, Destiny.
How you doing?
You don't have to scream like that, dude.
I was just saying, hey, what's up?
Okay. Um, yeah, I know. My message in chat, I just typed it because I thought it was funny about how, because I guess maybe because I don't understand your whole position on the voter ID law thing. Is it racist because like African Americans tend not to have IDs?
Why would you take a position
African.
on it if you don't know anything about it? Why do
Well,
people
I,
do
I know I
this?
know a fair bit about it. African Americans are like 20, they like 25% of them don't have IDs, and it's like eight for white people, right?
I don't know, my dude.
What do you, well, I mean that's like a big fact of the liberal think tank, right?
A little bit.
Is that why you think it's racist, or because that you can draw that to anything and then
All right, we'll
like
do the
claim
same.
racism?
It's okay. So, firstly, for any law to be struck down as racist, there's three parts of the law you can consider. You can consider the intent, you can consider the written word, and then you can consider the effect. Any one of these things can massively, disproportionately impact a certain group of people to be considered racist. This means that you could have a law that doesn't have a bad intention. Let's say we have a law that makes it so that in order.
Okay, so you think it's no. So can I just cut you off whenever? I know
Yeah,
you normally let people do it. So you think it's just the intent that makes it racist?
no. But, well,
Okay.
yeah, but not necessarily. But what I'm saying is that, like, let's say we have a law that says, hey, in order to vote, you have to be able to know this much math or this much reading, right? The intention can be good. You want educated people to vote. The letter of the law can be good. You don't specify a race. But then when the law is implemented, like 89% of minority voters are impacted because they don't have the education levels of white people, right? That law could be struck down as racist. And you could argue is to some extent racist because it so dramatically disproportionately impacts certain groups of people, right?
Sure, yeah,
Okay.
I guess so. To some
So
extent.
the problem with Republicans talking about voter ID is that typically in the United States, when we make laws, we usually make laws to address problems, right? Or we will modify stuff if there's a problem. Widespread voter fraud has just never been demonstrated anywhere in the United States to be a problem. Nobody has ever demonstrated this. It's never happened. If you disagree with that, we can go over links later, but I promise none of it is true. Because if this did happen, it would be screamed from the rooftops. It would
Okay,
be.
so what you think is the Republican Party just like writes it off as like just I guess protection from voter fraud, and that's not really what it is. It's
Yeah,
just a
that's what
way
they
to
say. It's
discriminate.
to try to keep black people from voting. So
Sure,
if we
okay.
look at
That's
something like North Carolina, what happened was the state legislature requested voter breakdown by race from the polling people. And what they did was they found all of the different ways that black people vote, and they made that illegal. So, for instance, you were able to vote 2 weeks before, via absentee voting or whatever, you were able to vote 2 weeks before the polls actually opened, right? Well, they found that most black people voted earlier in that as compared to white people, so they made it so you could only vote 1 week before instead of 2 weeks, right? They made a lot of little changes like this. They went through all of the ID requirements. Some state issued, some not, some expired, some not. And what they did was every single ID that black people tended to use, they made those forms of ID disallowed. And that's how they went through for their breakdowns, right? They shut down
okay.
some polling places that were disproportionately used by black people. So basically, by the end of it all, it was very obvious that the goal of this law was to, and I think in the Supreme Court, I think the phrase used was to surgically target black people to prevent them from voting.
Okay, sure. That's fair. Would you have an issue if it wasn't like with any kind of intent? Like if voter fraud was an issue and then they came out and made this law, would that be valid then or?
Yeah, voter fraud was an issue. It was absolutely valid. The integrity of the voting booth is very, very, very important. But the problem is it just hasn't been demonstrated to be a significant problem. Same thing with like if welfare people took all their money and spent it on drugs, maybe mandatory drug testing would become a necessity at that point. But like every state that's been tried, and it's just been a massive waste of money as well. You know?
Sure. I don't do so you think it's I feel like it's just an extra precaution. It's not like something that
So
um
but the problem is, why would we put up barriers? Like you typically don't want to stop people from voting. So why would you put up a barrier to voting as a quote unquote precaution?
I mean Destiny, like you make this sound like it's some massive barrier when like it's a literal ID, dude. Like come on, man. Like it's not like is that fair to like say? I don't know. I'm not
Well, I
sure.
mean, it doesn't have to be a massive barrier. It can be any barrier. Having to go to if you don't drive a car, It's possible you might not have an ID if I don't know. There's a large number of reasons why people might maybe not have an ID or not have the right type of ID.
Yeah, but these barriers are so like simple, right? Like they're not complex.
Yeah,
like
but why put any barrier at all? Why? It just doesn't make sense.
for like safety. I mean, I could think of why put barriers on like buying anything? Why put a barrier on going on a plane? Like,
Well, because the security on planes is a very, very, very big deal. And it's been demonstrated in the past that some people will hijack planes and do bad things with them.
sure, yeah, no, I think so too.
Also,
I
it's
don't know.
much
I feel
easier
like
to
I
make
feel
an
like that's
argument.
not.
Well,
I
it's
feel
also
like
much
it's not,
easier
it's not.
to make an argument that
Go
if
on.
you can afford a plane ticket, you can probably afford some form of ID, whereas voting should be open to everybody. Flying on a plane isn't a constitutional right.
Dude,
Being able
Destiny,
to
it
vote
costs
is.
you like it does not. It's not a lot of money to get a license, dude.
I mean,
Like,
$20 and a couple hours of time that's a decent chunk of time and a commitment to some people. It depends. But I mean,
oh my god, Destiny, this is like some of the most racist rhetoric I've ever heard, man. Like, oh
how is this
god,
racist rhetoric?
to say like black people can't spend like that amount of money and that amount of time to go get an ID to be able to vote is so fucking racist, dude. Do you not listen to yourself when you speak? Like,
Wow, we just went from zero to retard real quick. So,
zero to retard. You
okay,
think
so
so?
do you think that it's probably disproportionately impactful to poorer people to have to get an ID versus a wealthier person in terms of taking time off work, getting transportation to the
Is it harder for wealthier people to get ID than, or is it harder for poor people to get ID than wealthier people?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, do you think that you're more likely to be poor than wealthy if you're black?
Um. Uh,
This is a pretty easy question.
dude,
The
in
answer
America?
is yes, yeah.
Specifically in
If
America?
you're black, you're more likely to be poor than a white person. Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, so then what do you disagree with? You're placing a disproportionate burden on black people. You disagreed with both premises. The conclusion logically follows that you're making a law that's going to be disproportionately more impactful on black people than white people. What's racist about that?
Destiny, every law affects a group of people more than the other, technically, right? Like,
Okay, but we're talking about making a law to restrict one of your most important constitutionally guaranteed freedoms. What's the reason for the law? If the reason doesn't exist, why make it?
I've told you the reason multiple times.
The reason is to maybe prevent a future problem that hasn't existed yet?
Sure, yeah, sure.
And that's a good
It's
reason?
not a hard request to ask of somebody, dude. You make it sound like it's this massive request, which it
It doesn't
absolutely
have
is.
to be a massive request. It can be a simple request, but it's the fact that it's preventing you from accessing one of your constitutional freedoms. Like a police officer stopping you for no reason and asking you for your ID isn't really that big of a request. It wouldn't take me too much of my time to stop and show a cop my ID, but it's infringing on a very, very, very important freedom, the right to travel unencumbered by state memory. Like, just because it's not a huge deal to all people, it might be a huge deal to some, I don't know, but just because it's not a huge deal to all people doesn't mean it's not a big deal. You're talking about making a law to restrict somebody's constitutional right.
Okay, I guess, dude. I don't know, man. Don't you think that that's kind of like a little bit racist for you to say?
Which part of that is racist?
Like for you to imply that these people are like too stupid to go and do this, or
I'm
like they don't
implying
have the
that-
money, or
I'm implying
it
that-
affects the like.
I'm implying that poor people typically have a harder time getting the types of ID necessary to vote than wealthier people, and we're stating the fact that black people are more likely to be poor than white people. I'm not implying anything. That those two things are pretty
So then it
explicit.
has nothing to do with race. It just is. It's a wealth thing, or
Typically, yeah.
okay. I don't know, dude. Maybe if people can't like actually go out and like get an ID, then more like I'm not sure they should be allowed to vote in the first place. Like I feel like that's a pretty simple thing to do. I mean, you need your ID in so many situations,
Do
right?
you?
Like if you're getting a job, a million different situations. So if you're not even willing to go and get your ID, then maybe you shouldn't have a right to vote. Would you say that's fair or not?
I mean, I'm not a big fan of putting restrictions on your right to vote, considering it's a constitutionally guaranteed right. That sounds pretty harsh.
Okay, I guess. I mean, again, it's not really a big restriction.
It's not about being a big restriction.
Should nobody have to drive to the ballot box? Because that's technically racist too, based on your ideology, right?
I mean, I think there's public transportation that's provided. There's a lot of people that provide transportation to voting polls and whatnot.
Sure, sure, but can they pay the 250 to get on the bus, Destiny? I mean,
Isn't a lot of
come
that
on,
covered
you're
for
breaking the
free?
Constitution there, man.
Isn't that a lot of it covered for free, like from churches and shit? Don't people have like trips to the voting poll and whatnot? Like,
Yeah, if they can get to churches, dude. I
I
don't know,
mean,
man.
yeah, I don't know.
Why can you explain to me why
Yeah,
personal
wait.
responsibility is such like a meme from the left, dude, from the liberal left?
Because
Like, can you
because personal responsibility is largely non-existent because you're largely a product of your
oh,
environment.
okay, dude.
Yeah.
It seems to me like you base a lot of your opinions and your ideas off determinism being like a 100% solid, foolproof fact.
So I base all of my ideas on pretty much every single study that's ever been conducted in the realm of psychology ever. What do you base your opinions off of?
I don't know, dude. I don't know.
Do you
I just
disagree
guess.
with the assertion that people put in predictable environments will become, where people put in certain environments will have predictable results? Do you think that you have
That's
just as much a chance of being a criminal if you're born in like a very upper class neighborhood as if you were born in a very lower class project?
No. You
Okay,
would
so
probably
then you
more
agree.
likely
Then you already agree. Then why you just abandon your argument instantly? So then you agree that where you're born at can have a big determining impact on how you turn out.
Sure, I guess, but it's you have to take some personal responsibility for how you turn out, dude.
Yeah,
Like,
we have the
sure, these things
penal
can
system
impact
and
you, but
criminal justice and all that. Yeah, you go to jail if you fuck up, but
yeah, I don't know why it's such a big meme from the liberal left to not take any personal responsibility for like your situation and how to get out of that situation.
because
Like,
getting
sure,
out of it can
you're more
be
likely to end up doing X, Y, Z, but
because you're asking sometimes the worst off people to act better than everybody else in society. Like that's kind of an absurd statement to make.
to say that you're responsible for your actions and you're responsible for the things you do, no
To
matter
tell
what
people
situation you're
born
born
to
in.
tell some people born into the worst circumstances to tell them that they have to act better than everybody else in society in order to be seen as equivalent that's a pretty harsh statement to make.
Okay, Destiny, look. I wrote down some questions for you, and I want you to answer them. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Now I've written these questions based on a long time watching you. Actually, I actually like most of your content. I liked your conversation with No Bullshit, even though I thought that it was kind of bullying towards the end. That guy is literally clinically retarded, but what are you gonna do? Okay, so my first question I wrote is, you've probably answered all these before, but I mean, I watched a lot of your content, so I probably haven't heard many of them. But my first question specifically is, do you ever think it's worth just sacrificing truth for political correctness, or
No.
no? Okay, interesting. I actually think it is sometimes, but
Okay.
okay. Anyways, next question. Do you think that society catering to its majority demographic is an okay thing?
As long as the rights of the few are always protected, I guess it depends on what. I would need like specific examples to know that, but
Okay. All right. That's a fair answer. Okay. And then my next question, I guess, would be, and I understand you're not like as liberal in SJW as like a lot of these people. Like, I think it was pretty disgusting how Paul Joseph Watson or whatever represented you as an SJW when like most of your like you have very conservative stances on some issues, right? Like, so I don't know. But my next question would be, can some cultures just be blatantly better than other cultures, or
better is a very, very, very contentious word. Like you would have to start establishing like moral paradigms and shit to determine what's better than something else.
sure, okay.
So,
I mean, I guess based on the moral paradigms that our society has set.
well, of course, but that becomes tautological. Any society's moral paradigms are going to value its society over any others, right?
Okay, yeah, I guess so.
I'm sorry.
Okay,
So what I mean by that
do you
is
think
like,
do you think it's a form of supremacy if I say that I think American culture is the best culture? Like, is that a form of supremacy, or go ahead, talk.
I mean, probably not. I guess not.
No, okay, all right. Okay, and then my next thing I wrote was kind of a big meme. So I heard, so I you like talk about this idea that we're all American all the time, right? Like we're all Americans. Like you've said this multiple times, right? So I guess when I watched you talk about affirmative action before, okay, and you like again, you say that we're all Americans, so I don't know. Like you seem to imply that these little kids need to have role models.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess why do they have to have role models that like look like them? Why can't they just have American role models? Because we're all just American.
Because we tend to identify with people that look like us to some extent. And also, it's hard to say that we're all American if all of your role models are only white. It seems like it's harder to make that argument.
Yeah, maybe. I don't I don't know if that's actually true, but
If you were a black person or a woman growing up in America and they said, we're all American and you can do anything you want if you're American, and you look up and you see that every single engineer is a white man, doesn't that make you kind of feel like, oh, okay, well, that's strange because it seems like this field is only supposed to be held by like white dudes?
I don't know. I mean, we're all American, right? So
So then
I
why
just
wouldn't
don't.
there be more than just white dudes in certain fields?
I mean, there could be a plethora of reasons for that. What do you mean?
Okay, but are you going to explain to a 7-year-old that, like, well, the reason why there are no black women that work in NASA is because of, like, how, like, I don't know, people just tend to identify with people that look like them, and having role models, like, shows very clearly, like, a point A to point B, like, oh, well, if he can do it and I'm like him, then I can do it or whatever. Like,
Sure. I mean, I guess like at what age does it become? Then I guess my next question would be at what age is that like where people have to like stop? Because like you talked about a 7-year-old seeing like somebody from NASA and thinking like, oh wow, that guy looks like me. And I think that's pretty fair if a 7-year-old does that. But I guess what age does that have to stop, Destiny?
I mean, I would prefer that nobody thought that way ever, but it's just kind of a fact, a reality that people tend to identify strongly with people that look like them, people that are the same gender as them. So, I mean, it's probably something that follows through
Really,
your entire
Destiny,
life.
I've heard you imply that like that's kind of like an apish tribal thing to do, and that like the I don't know, dude. I've
It
heard you
is. I
make
agree. Yeah, I think it's really stupid. I don't like culture. I don't like nationalism. I don't like any kind of group identity. I think it's all dumb. But that doesn't mean I can't acknowledge the reality of it.
Okay, I guess that's fair. All right.
Like
Well,
if I wanted to go into something or do something, I wouldn't care what anybody looked like, and or if there were other people like me doing it. Like that's not something that I personally care about. But not everybody's like that, and I can acknowledge that people are different, and that a large number of people, that is very important that they have role models and whatnot to look up to for fields that they want to go into, or in popular entertainment and culture and media and whatnot.
sure. I mean, I guess if that's really what you need is people who look like you to
Yeah, a lot of
aspire
people
to.
need it. The sad thing is
Yeah.
that most people that say that people shouldn't need it, they do too. They just don't realize it because they're the default and they've never been challenged on that before. This was the big argument that I had with No Bullshit, because No Bullshit made this argument that culture shouldn't have such a big influence on you, and I asked him to give me a single example of him ever bucking a societal trend ever, because he's a product of his environment just as much as anybody else's, and he couldn't give me an example. So he defaulted to saying that he was fat, and that was his way
Yeah.
of bucking society.
Okay, Destiny. Yeah, the guy's not that bright. Okay.
Sure, but a lot of
Like,
people say this. You'll see a lot of white dudes say all the time that it shouldn't matter who you are, it shouldn't matter what you look like. But then, like, when an all-female Ghostbusters show up, people lose their fucking mind. Or when you see, like, when people are playing Call of Duty Black Ops 2 Zombie Invader, and then they see that another Call of Duty game is being released, and there's, like, a black soldier, and they lose their fucking minds. It's like, well, what
well,
am I supposed... Because
because
what?
I don't.
Because historical accuracy is really important to you when you're playing Call of Duty? Like, come on,
No, no,
dude.
no, 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 no. I mean, I was just gonna bring up culture memes, but I don't know, dude.
Like
Like,
people, like it's very clear that white people get really fucking mad anytime their identity and anything is challenged. And I thought that these were all the people saying it shouldn't fucking matter, right? Like, but it seems like obviously it does matter. So it matters to
no,
everybody.
no. There is some hypocrisy there. I just agree. That's just true. Like, whoops. Yep, that's just true. Um. Okay. Well, I don't know. I could keep talking about a lot of different things if you want me to, but
If I mean, is there anything else big you wanted to go over, buddy?
I don't know, dude. Do you hate me after this conversation or?
No, of course not, buddy.
Okay. All right. Is this gonna? How often do you post like stuff on YouTube from your?
I don't know, pretty often. But it's a pretty short combo, so I don't know. I doubt it'll get posted, so you're probably safe. I
Safe?
don't do
Okay.
it. I don't do it myself. It's my editor that does it. So
If I was to say that like if I was to say that a culture like based on a race was superior, is that not okay, or
Well, it
does that
depends on
cross
how
the
you
line?
define superior. That's right. We would have to define our terms very rigidly to get into this kind of a conversation.
Um,
So, like, let's say, for example, let's say that I define my axioms for having a good culture are things like women and men are treated somewhat equally. There is not racism or discrimination against like groups of people, right? Let's say that those are my two big axioms, right? Now, if I were to compare American culture to say Saudi Arabian culture, and those are my two big my two big things, right? This is like my moral paradigm, right? Then I would be able to say like, well, under under these moral assertions, American culture is definitively better than Saudi Arabian culture, right? Now, if Saudi Arabia wanted to define its culture as a strict adherence to some sort of religious Islamic value or whatever, their interpretation of it, and they were to compare their culture to American culture, they would say, well, we can see that, by way of, what we define to be good, Saudi Arabian culture is much better than American culture. This is what I
sure,
meant when I
sure,
said
sure,
it
sure.
was
Yeah,
tautological.
sure, it's just subjective definitions of what you think is superior, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Um, so is it? What if we took the countries out of it and we did it by, like, ethnicity of people? Does that cross the line then, or
What if we were
like?
to wait? What?
So like, if like, God, I'm gonna sound racist if I say anything, dude. Oh God,
What?
I'm like a pretty well known Hearthstone memer. So I, but like, so let's say like if an Asian person said like, I think that the culture of Asian people is, or like let's say a Japanese person. It doesn't really matter. Is like a race allowed to say that their culture is superior? Is my question.
I mean, it's kind of racist because it implies that all Japanese people have the same culture. I mean, you could make an argument for like the country of Japan, but
Um. Okay.
like if a Korean in Korea were to say like I think South Korean culture is far superior to Japanese culture, that would probably be fine. But if you're like I think that Korean people are superior to Japanese people, that's like a kind of different, a lot different, right?
Can you say those two things again? Sorry.
If a South Korean were to say, I think that South Korean culture is superior to Japanese culture, like the country of Japan, that's you
Okay.
could defend that statement using different arguments. But to say that like Koreans are superior to Japanese people, that's a much different statement, right? A much more extreme one that would be a lot harder to defend.
Sure. I guess so. You're kind of saying that like, if a white person was to say like, well, I think the culture of white people is the supreme one, then that's more or less racist because the culture of white people is ill-defined.
Yeah, like what do you mean by
Or
white people there? And then supreme for
yeah,
what? Dark people? Like which countries? Like I'm sure I can find some white countries in, Eastern Europe that are inferior to some colored countries or whatever, depending on what color you want to talk about.
sure, that's fair. Um, Also, something I notice you do all the time, dude,
Uh-oh.
and like, oh God, it makes me so sick, dude. Every time I see you do it, is you like, there's this like assumption you make about all Americans all the time about how they're so stupid, dude. Like Republicans are just like,
Wait, hold on. What? I very, very, very valiantly defend when people make like NA education jokes and shit. I'm usually like on the opposite end of that, where I make fun of
okay,
Europeans for being from a country that's smaller than my fucking state, like making fun of Americans for not knowing everything about European politics, and making fun of the fact that most European countries nobody gives a fuck about them, and obviously they know everything about America because they hear about us all the time because they're so awesome. Like, well, I'm like on the other end of that. I don't understand. What do you mean?
sure, okay, then maybe that's my misinterpretation. I don't know. I've seen a couple of your videos where it seemed like you were kind of like implying that Americans are stupid, but maybe that's
Oh, I guess. No, I probably do. I'm sorry. I'm going to walk all that back. I think most people are stupid. I get really defensive when Eurocucks call Americans stupid. But yeah, I think a lot of Americans are pretty dumb. But I think a lot of people
okay.
in general are pretty dumb. So I'm sorry. When you said Americans, I thought you were saying like Americans versus other people. I think
Yeah,
that
no, no,
most
no.
people. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I understand. I understand. It's fine. Um, okay, and yeah, I don't know. I think you base your ideas off determinism being like fact
Yeah, because I
a
think for
lot
the
of time.
most part, people are our world is fairly deterministic.
If we operated off of a fully deterministic system, our society would collapse, right?
Not
Like
necessarily. No, I don't think
what?
so.
Destiny, that's lunacy. What do you mean not necessarily?
Why do you think it would collapse?
I would go commit a crime right now, dude.
Why?
Because there would be no punishment for it.
Why would there be no punishments in a
If
deterministic
we operated
system?
up because we're operating off a deterministic based system.
Why would there be no punishments?
Well, because what do you mean? You think there'd still be punishments under a deterministic based system?
Sure, you don't necessarily need moral agents to punish them for it. Maybe the punishment is rolled into the deterministic system, and maybe the punishment keeps people from committing crimes in the future, or maybe the punishment rehabilitates people so they stop doing it. Right? These are all valid reasons to
Sure.
have
I
punishments.
don't think that. Yeah, sure. Okay. So I guess in the society I set up in my head, I don't think you can morally justify punishing somebody under a deterministic based system. But
Well, that's
maybe
because
that's
you're
just
looking
wrong.
at punishment as solely retribution. But if you look at punishment as keeping dangerous people on the streets until they're reformed, or look at it as in terms of rehabilitation or a deterrent, these are all valid reasons to punish somebody, even if they're not acting of their own free will, kind of.
Jesus, everybody was right about you speaking quick. You definitely do speak quick.
I'm sorry, I try not to.
No, it's
Does
okay.
that make sense, though?
Um,
Like, let's say I have a deterministic system where Fred doesn't kill somebody because he doesn't want to go to jail for it. That's an example of a punishment existing in a deterministic system that's now being baked into other people's deterministic actions, right? That Fred doesn't kill somebody because of a punishment that exists. So even if everything is fully deterministic, that punishment still serves its purpose. Or let's say somebody does something bad and then they go to jail in some place that's not the United States, and they get reformed. So that's good. They went to the punishment place or whatever. They were able to get rehabilitated and reformed, and now they're back in society. Even in a fully deterministic system like that thing still makes sense, right?
sure. Okay. Yeah, I guess so. I guess. I don't know. I just couldn't just. I guess I can't see the moral justification for it. Like it can exist, sure,
Sure.
but
And
like
the problem with that is because in America we view punishment as solely retribution. And in that case, it's kind of harder to make the argument for it. But that's because Americans have a really fucking warped view of what prison is supposed to be.
yeah, no, and I think I would agree with you completely on that, and I would even go like a step further and say that like um I guess that might be very flawed, right? Like I don't know. That's
Yeah,
just
it's
not.
really flawed. It's really bad because recidivism in the U.S. is very fucking high, and we've got people that make money off of sending, bribes and shit to mayors to keep more people sentenced higher to go to jail because they're like for-profit prisons and shit. Like, there's a lot of fucked up shit about prisons in the U.S. Our whole view of the criminal justice system is very, very warped in the United States.
Yeah, I think so too. But then again, you have to go back to the personal responsibility memes, right?
Who
Like,
cares? I don't give a fuck about that shit. That's irrelevant.
what?
I don't want to spend money like getting revenge on somebody. That's not the point of what jail is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a place where you go there and you get your shit figured out, and then when you come back,
Destiny, do you understand that? Do you understand that society would like more or less collapse if there wasn't punishment for these things, dude? Like a great punishment. Like this is one of the reasons why I thought Trump wasn't actually that bad was because of his like stance on police killings. I thought that was a pretty good one.
I mean, typically the goal for a better society is if you have people that break rules, you want to make it so that they don't break rules anymore, not just punish them over and over and over again. Like, you want to build a better society. You don't want them to be going to jail their whole lives where I have to fucking pay for it. I would rather them come back to society and work and pay taxes and shit. That would be preferential.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that happened, or they just get out of jail and they're like, "Hey, Destiny, let me off for free. Nice meme," and then they go and break a law again, and then
Well,
the process repeats itself. I don't know, dude.
so people break laws typically when they don't have much alternative to do other stuff. If you put a person in an environment where they can attend school for free and they've got good work opportunities and job opportunities and a family that's together and everything, like these are people that aren't going to run off and commit crime because they're too busy playing soccer after school and hanging out with friends, and they've got shit to look forward to in the future. If you live in a shitty fucking city in a shitty ghetto in the fucking projects and your school is falling the fuck apart and you can't even go to gym class because the ceilings are fucking leaking and shit, and you've got no job prospects or anything, and a single mother, like this is a person that's probably going to do crime because why the fuck else wouldn't they? Like, what does this guy owe society, or why does he think he needs to go and rise above and beyond and go do some other shit when he can take a much easier road out and just resort to crime?
Were you asking me that question?
Well, no, I mean it's a little rhetorical, but I'm just saying that like people make pretty predictable choices based on where they're at, right?
Sure. I guess I don't know why like these people can't be held accountable for like I don't know how you can like like say these things in like 100% certainty.
So when I say hold people accountable, my problem is that people want all the credit and they don't want to take any of the blame for any of their problems, and but they want to take all the credit, and everybody acts like they're an island. Okay, if you grew up in a middle class family and you went to school and you went to college and you got your little BA, BS, and you got a decent job and you make 50, 60, 70K a year, you didn't accomplish shit in your life, okay? Like, that sounds really mean to say, but like everything was more or less laid out for you the moment you were born, okay? You had a good family, you had mom that stayed home all the time, single earner, you went to a decent school, you had decent friends, nobody tested you at any point in your life to see if you would severely fuck up. There were never any hard choices that you had to make. Your hardest choice was studying for fucking school while you lived off of mommy and daddy daycare your entire way through college when they paid for your cell phone, your car, right? For this person then to come out the other end of this system earning 60, 70K with their degree where everything in life was given to them, for them to look at somebody that was born in infinitely worse circumstances and say, why didn't you rise above? Why didn't you do better? Why didn't you come up and take responsibility? They're like, dude, you didn't do fucking shit. What right do you have to judge another person? Now, maybe if you were born middle class and you became like a millionaire or some shit, maybe
Jesse,
you have a little bit more.
Do you understand? I want to let you finish, but okay.
No, yeah, go ahead.
Well, do you understand how like harmful that is to devalue people like that, though?
No. I think it's realistic,
Destiny,
and I think the devaluing needs to happen because people get way too fucking uppity on what they've accomplished. And when you've got a guy that's born in an awesome family and goes to an awesome school and then goes to an awesome, and he somehow thinks that he's like the fucking cock of the walk and he's done so much in his life, he has this position, this perceived position of like moral authority or some shit, or responsible authority, where he feels like he can talk down to other people, not realizing like, oh, well, hey, I actually had a fuck ton of advantages throughout my entire life, and I should be grateful for that, and try to hope that other people can have the same advantages that I do.
Sure, and people like that are bad. Sure, like I agree with you. Somebody who thinks that they have like some authority, but I don't think that you can just devalue people like completely and say like, hey, if you had all this stuff laid out for you, like you didn't really do anything that great. Like I just think that.
Sure, I think I will. Yeah, I would. Like because if you think that you've done really great stuff your whole life and everybody thinks that they've done really great stuff, it's much easier from that position to look at people in fucked up areas and go, well, why didn't you do the same great stuff I did?
So then we're just like, is it just like you're competing with people on like who got to a better position in life harder? Like, is that where we're at?
No,
like,
I just want people to be cognizant of the advantages that they had in life so that they understand where they're at and why they're there so that we can help other people get to similar positions.
Sure. Do you
like
think
I don't tell other people to just like talk talk quicker. Like why can't you just talk? Why can't you just debate like I do? Why can't you just keep talking? Why can't you just form thoughts and everything and throw them out? Right? Because I've had a ton of practice doing this. I'm where I am now because I've been debating people for fucking 20 years. Like I've done it my whole life. I always talk to people. So if I wanted people to be good debaters or whatever, I wouldn't just tell them, well, just get good like I am or whatever, right? I would say, well, dude, just put in the practice. Debate a lot of people. Talk to a lot of people about things. Like do it for a long fucking time and you'll get to where I'm at. I don't think I'm anything special. Anybody can get here. Right? There's a difference in perception of like, why are you where you are, right? Based on what you tell people to do.
Okay, well, so I guess based on your system, you haven't accomplished that much, or would you be willing to like admit that, like that you didn't really do shit in your life? Like this, I don't know, dude. Like,
I mean, like, so obviously,
do you understand how that's like hard for people to come out and like admit to themselves?
Sure. I mean, I unfortunately under my system, and of course it'll sound biased, I think I did accomplish a fair bit because I went from having no parental support in college to dropping out of college to working a carpet cleaning job to now making a fuck ton of money playing video games in an industry that didn't exist when I started. I think I did pretty good. I think I have stuff that I can be pretty proud of, and insofar as like what I've accomplished. But even at my current level, I don't sit here and tell people that everybody can go be a video game streamer like I do, right? I grew up my whole life playing video games, so that gave me an edge doing games because my parents bought me fucking consoles and shit to play on. I also had a lot of people at school that I talked to and joked around with and debated a lot, right? Which gave me a good platform to talk to people on. You know, like I've had a ton of stuff in my life that went the right way to give me the ability to do what I do now. You know, even I don't take it for granted. But I mean, I've got more of a leg to stand on than anybody that just has a random 4-year degree that makes 50, 60, 70K a year that had mom and dad pay for their entire education. But even I don't abuse my position like they abuse theirs.
I just don't agree with you because I don't think that that's the correct way to operate society. I think that I agree with you that people will probably respond predictably, and if you have laws that are hard on people and, you know, they're like harsh things, then people will more or less, you know, be very worrisome about breaking the law. And on top of that, I don't think that you can like sure, people have easier and harder lives than each other. Like that's just a fact. Like somebody who has parents that make $150,000 and somebody who has parents who make $20,000, they're gonna live much harder lives, and one is gonna be more different than the other. But for you to say that like for you to devalue that person who made $150,000 a year. What if the person who made what if when his parents made $150,000 a year and he turned out to be a fuck up, is he just a giant failure at that point or what?
Yeah, he fucked up real hard. I mean,
Nice.
it happens, but yeah, you have to fuck up real hard. Yeah. I mean, look at somebody, I hate to use personal examples because it's really mean and everybody's got their own problems, but like look at somebody like Mitch Jones, right? Do you follow his stream at all?
I know a little bit about him.
Yeah, so this
Yep.
is a guy that's had like a lot of problems financially. He owes his ex-girlfriend like $40,000 or some shit, and he's got a lot of problems like keeping like steady income on his stream and shit. And his parents are rich. He lived in his dad's extra house while he took off a year from streaming. Like, if anybody like of a lesser socioeconomic position made that mistake, they would have to like kill themselves, right? Like they wouldn't have a year to live in their dad's house, extra house, to figure their life out. No.
Sure. Yeah, no, probably not. They would be in a pretty bad situation, I would guess. So I don't know. I guess that's a fair example of somebody who fucked up. I don't know. I just can't be very quick to tell somebody like I don't know, Destiny. People have harder lives than other people, and like if you push the personal responsibility rhetoric on people, then that will get them out of their situation more often than just feeding them.
Then why hasn't that worked so far? Anywhere, for anybody in the United States.
Well, because Democrats and liberals exist. What do you mean, dude?
So so if we were to just tell all the poor people just work harder, all of their problems would get fixed.
That would probably be a good start. Yeah.
Why would you expect a whole group of people to act in an exceptional way when
Destiny, that's how people make progress. What do you? I
no,
don't.
it's
I'm
not.
not
But
expecting it.
we're content. If you're born middle class and you end your whole life middle class, you didn't push or be exceptional in any way. That whole class of people hasn't been exceptional at all. So if you don't expect them to act exceptional, why would you expect another whole group of people to act exceptional?
If you're born middle class and stay middle class, then you're not acting exceptional.
Yeah, you haven't
But
been exceptional at all. So why would you expect every lower class person to be exceptional and rise above and climb to another class?
I don't know. I don't know if I'd expect that.
Isn't that what you're saying? That all poor people just need to work harder to fix all their problems? Or
Well, sure. I think that they should. Yeah, of course. I think that they should take responsibility for their
okay, but
situation.
you're not telling middle class people they've got all the tools they need to become upper class people. If you're born
Sure,
into a
I think
household
yeah.
making
Sure,
150K,
of
you
course
could
I
be a
think middle
million.
class. No. Of course, I think middle class people should keep advancing up the.
But we're
the
not
ladder.
getting mad at them. We're not condemning them for being middle class their whole lives.
No, because middle class isn't actually that bad.
Okay, but like whether or not it's bad or good has no bearing on whether the person like. Do you think that like a poor person?
No, of
like,
course, it has bearing. You don't think that it has any bearing at all?
So do you think a poor person, when they make their choices for life, if they're in a certain environment, they're like, okay, well, I'm going to do this because it's bad or this because it's good? I don't think that's normally how people make these types of choices.
Wait, what? Say that whole thing one more time.
I don't
Dude,
think
does
that...
a poor person look at their choices, bad and good, and then evaluate them and then make a decision based off them? Yeah, probably.
No, I don't think that's how people do that. Why do you think so
But
many
they-
poor people make like illegal choices then? Are they just like alignment bad? These people all just rolled poorly and they're actually bad people?
I don't know why people do the things they do, Destiny. I don't know. It's a question that I can't answer. I mean, if your parents make $20,000 a year, okay, I would give the advice to you that you should probably realize that you're in a pretty shitty situation and then go and make the best choices for yourself at any given time to get out of that situation.
Okay, but that's an exceptional thing. Climbing above your class is an exception. Do you know
Yes, Destiny. How do you not? Dude? If you just give away everything, like if
Okay,
if
but
you
you
just,
never tell middle class people to make these same struggles. How do you
no,
even
because
know
being a middle class person is not that bad.
No, of course not. But how can you expect people to be able to do this? If you don't even expect your citizens that are well off to be able to do it, how can you expect somebody of a lower class to do it?
Oh, you're saying that middle class citizens can't do it. So, okay.
Yeah. Even they don't rise above their circumstances most of the time.
I mean, I don't. I think it's pretty like a reasonable thing to expect. Do you not? How do people get better if you don't expect them to do that, dude? How?
You give them better environments, access to better education, access to free contraception, access to social services, like whatever you can do that find your biggest indicators for what fucks people up, and then try to alleviate that in whatever ways you can. And yeah,
I think it's a bad idea just to throw money at the problem, dude, and give
I'm not
them
talking about throwing money at the problem. Single-parent households are really fucking bad. They're really bad. It fucks the mom's life up forever. It can fuck the kid's life up forever.
Yes,
they
I
can
understand.
go out and create more fucked up people, right? It's really bad. So something like free access to contraception seems like a no-brainer. We reduce the number of abortions. If you're pro-life, that's good. We reduce the number of young people getting pregnant, which ruins their lives and causes them to leech off the welfare state, which is good. We reduce the number of single-parent households, which is good because single-parent households are a leading indicator of whether or not a kid is going to be a criminal, right? So this seems like a no-brainer, right? Contraception
is it's more or less free right now, but
is it?
Are you talking about just condoms, or are you talking about
Condoms or
actual
birth control? Birth control too, sure.
I mean, there's always Plan B too, but
Plan
condoms
B is pretty expensive. Plan B is really rough, dog. Plan B
is like $50 a fucking come inside. Okay.
Well, it's a rough thing for the woman. Plan B is that's a hard meme to do. It's like having a fucking miscarriage. Like it can, depending on who you are, like it can be a pretty hard thing. And also, if you're fat, I don't even think it works. But
I feel like contraception's a pretty I think at least condoms are like. Dude, they're like $3 at the store. Like,
also, Plan B for $50. $50 is a lot of money to some people. That's
oh my god, you're just gonna feed me with this rhetoric of like people can't afford Plan B for $50.
$50, dude.
Oh,
$50? That's
Fuck.
fucking 2 tanks of gas. That's groceries for 2 weeks. $50? That's like almost 2 days of work for some people, depending on how many hours you're getting.
Maybe you should take some responsibility and not let the guy fucking come inside you without a condom.
Okay, but if you're wealthy, what responsibility do you have there?
Far less than if you're poor.
Yeah, you have no responsibility. If I wanted to right now, I could go and get myself a speeding ticket for 40 miles an hour over, and I wouldn't give a fuck.
Born in this. Destiny, so you were born in a shitty situation, so it's up to you to take responsibility for where you were born.
No, but I'm just saying it's not fair, so don't act like some people should take responsibility while other people don't have to.
Destiny, life isn't fair, dude. What do you mean? Of course not. Dude, we cannot live in a society where everything is equally fair.
No,
dude.
but I would want to pay money. Let's just look at it from a selfish point of view. I don't want to pay money for some bitch's fucking kid. I don't want to have to pay for her. I don't want to have to pay WIC. I don't want to have to pay welfare. I don't want to have to give her child support. I don't want her getting more money back from the earned income credit. I don't want to pay for a fucking kid. Now, if you're telling me that I could put this chick on the pill for her whole life, I'll do that. I'll buy it. I don't give a fuck. I'll buy you birth control so I don't have to pay for your fucking kid. So I don't have to pay for more cops to go to patrol the streets that he's going to be gangbanging on. So I don't have to pay to lock him up and put him in jail, right? Even from a self-interested point of view, even if you hated these people, you would still want to contribute to birth control because I don't want to pay for their children, right? Even if you hated them, you could make that argument.
I don't know. That's not how I see the world, unfortunately. I wish I could see it like that. So you'd rather
view kids as a punishment then? That since they fucked up, now they need to fuck the whole system up even worse?
Are we assuming that they actually went through and had the kid, or what?
Yeah, if they can't afford the abortion, I mean, I don't know.
And I guess you would have to give them away for adoption. I don't know what to tell you.
Dude, you can't just give away. There's tons of kids up for a buck.
If this stupid bitch can't fucking afford, if this woman you're talking about can't afford fucking condoms or doesn't have the responsibility to wear them, then that's her fault, right?
Okay, but the problem is you're giving her much more blame than a wealthy person for doing it. If a wealthy middle class person fucks up,
but that's because life isn't fair, dude. What do you mean?
Okay, but I want to make it as fair as possible because we all live in society. We all live in civilization.
Just throw money at the problem, Destiny.
I'm not talking about throwing money at the problem. I was talking about a very targeted policy action, making birth control free or as reduced cost as possible to low-income people. That's not throwing money at a problem. That is a very specific targeted solution to a very specific targeted problem.
Okay. I don't think that that's a better solution than these people need to take personal responsibility for their actions.
Okay, but the problem is you're punishing them far more and all of society more than a wealthy person making the same mistake. If you're middle class and you get pregnant, there's a million options available to you. You can fucking find a rich friend to adopt it to, or you can go get abortions. You can do whatever the fuck you want. Mommy and daddy are always there to take care of you and do whatever. Whereas if you're a lower class person, there's probably and also you've got Plan B $50. Maybe it sounds like you're middle class. $50 is no big deal to you. Who cares if you go and drop 50 or whatever on a Plan B? Like, that's fine. You've got access to birth control because mom and dad pay for your health insurance. You can get that shit for free too. Like, it's way, 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 way easier for you to not get in trouble. And if you do get in trouble, access to an abortion, all that shit is way easier as well, right? Whereas for a poor person, they've got a harder time getting access to birth control because because it costs more money to them as a percentage of their income, right? Plan Bs and abortions are much more expensive, right? You're punishing them more for making the same mistake that a middle class person does.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I am.
Why would you want to do that?
You have to.
But it doesn't work. It wastes my money.
Destiny. These things that you're proposing, of like, we just give birth control away for free, that's more or less throwing money at the problem, is it not? Or would, like, I don't know how you don't think
What would be wrong with giving every poor person an easy way to not have kids? How do you think...
we developed condoms, dude, okay? If they don't want to wear it, that's their fault.
Okay, firstly, condoms suck. Secondly, condoms still cost money. And thirdly, why would you only want the man to be in charge of birth control when you could give women access to the pill as well?
Do girls make you wear condoms a lot or what, Destiny?
Fuck that shit, dude.
What? Come on, dog. It's not that bad.
It's
you really think
really
so?
bad. Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
Never mind.
It's
okay, my dude.
No, Destiny, I've actually had sex with...
No, it's okay. No, it's all right. We don't have to do this. It's okay.
Okay. I understand condoms are not that great, and I understand that you just want to pay for people that get raw dogged all day.
No, really. Condoms are fucking horrible. How can you not agree with that?
I've never had to wear a condom, dog.
Okay,
so
try it sometime, all right? And when you're sitting there fucking her for like an hour and she's complaining that her fucking vagina is rubbed raw by the rubber that's dried out, like you can...
Okay, Jesus, Destiny. I don't want to hear about it, dude. I like to live in my world where they don't exist, man.
Okay, so birth control is much better, and also less in regards to the condom. It gives both parents or potential parents the ability to control their whatever future, right? Their parental future, right? If the woman has access to a form of birth control and the man has access to a form of birth control, both people can be agents there in deciding whether or not somebody gets pregnant, right?
If they both have access to birth control, sure, yeah, of course. Sure, I think they should both be agents all the time. Like, whether...
Well, if the woman doesn't have access to birth control, then she's kind of relying on the guy.
Destiny, why would you say to people... This is what I don't understand. Why would you say to people that like, I'll pay for your birth control because you might potentially make a mistake, versus, like, if you make a mistake, then that's your fucking fault. Like, you shouldn't have made that mistake, you know.
Because I have to...
If you don't punish people for these things, then they're
punished for it and they're still making the mistakes, and I'm still paying for it. It's like a lose-lose-lose. They make the mistake, they lose. The child has to be raised in a fucked environment, they lose. And I've got to pay extra money for it because now I'm paying fucking welfare, so I lose. It's literally a triple loss situation. Why not just take the single L where I pay for birth control, which is going to be cheaper than paying for the kid anyway, and then they don't have to make kids that don't want to be born into fucked up circumstances, and they don't have to have kids and fuck their own lives up.
I don't know. It's like a really hard question to answer, but
it seems pretty simple to me. I
know, not at all. It's definitely not simple, dude. Not at all. For the first scenario you posed of, like, I don't even know if the kid's life is necessarily going to be like a horrible thing at all.
It's not that it's going to be horrible necessarily, but being in a single parent household is one of the big indicators for having a fucked up life. You don't agree with that? Or, I mean, I can find you numbers.
Sure, but in what ways are you, like, paying for this kid? Like, if you're just going to give all of this stuff away, Destiny, it doesn't work.
In what ways are you paying for this kid? So the mother is probably going to apply for some form of welfare, right? Where she's going to be getting money from the government in the form of maybe an EBT, an electronics benefit card, right, for food stamps. When she's pregnant, she's probably going to sign up for WIC, Women's, Infant, and Children, in order to get assistance financially for food and whatnot there. As she starts to work, she's going to take advantage of something called the Earned Income Tax Credit. That tax credit scales up much higher if you have a kid, so she's going to be getting more back in taxes that aren't being paid into the system. She's also going to be able to claim the child as part of a tax deduction on her tax. Oh, that EIC, that Earned Income Credit, by the way, is refundable. So even if she can have a negative tax liability by the time she files her taxes, she can get more back from the government than she paid in because that EIC is refundable. So there's a ton of ways that you have to pay money for these people that have kids out of wedlock.
Sure, okay. I'm not necessarily saying that you should have to do that at all.
Oh, and also the family, the household is going to have reduced income. So if that child grows up, because it's a single parent, when that child grows up and wants to go to college or school, if there's any type of financial aid available, a lot of that is publicly funded. They're going to be taking more money out of the financial aid because they're going to be in a single parent household with less gross income. Like if there's a reduced cross program for lunch. For lunch at school, right? They're going to be getting.
Yeah, okay.
So there's a million ways that you pay for
find
it,
a million
right?
ways. Yes, I don't, and I'm not saying that you should necessarily have to pay for any of those at all.
Okay, so we just let them starve. So you just want to get rid of all welfare, and if they fuck up, then fuck them and fuck the kids too.
I mean, not that necessarily either. I don't. Maybe this exact specific topic is one that I'll give you, but
Okay, on birth control, that's fine. That's okay. If you
but
want we can move on to the next thing. What do you want to talk about next? Do you want to talk about education or schools?
Well, no, Destiny, but you're talking about more than just singular birth control, dude.
Yeah, I am. We can talk about other policies as well.
This is a conversation. Look, this is a conversation about responsibility as a whole, dude.
Okay. And what I'm saying is your expectations of middle-class people's responsibility is very fucking low. Whereas on poor people, it's much higher. You place a much larger...
Yes, it has to be higher. It has to be, dude.
But they're capable of less because of their situation.
Sure, that's just true. Yes.
Sounds like... Why would you want... You have a recipe for disaster, then.
People do not get better if you just hand them everything, dude.
Okay,
not the way...
Okay, hold on. Let's look at that statement. You just said that people don't get better if you hand them everything. Do you think that if you're born into a household where the gross income is $40K a year versus being born into a household where the gross income is $400K a year, which person do you think is probably going to end up better off in life?
Is that a joke question?
So the answer is obvious, right? That the wealthier person.
Yes.
So it sounds like if you do give them stuff, they do end up better because that kid was given way more than the poor kid. So how could you possibly disagree?
If you just give people things, they don't turn out better. If you
give a kid a mom that stays at home, if you give a kid a free college education via mommy daddy welfare.
I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. It's a fair point. No, that's totally fair. But I don't think like we're talking about much more than just like materialistic things at this point, dude.
Okay, if you give them a loving mother that can stay at home and help them, if you give them really good friends that also come from good households, these are all things you give people.
Sure. I don't know how you can give those things, but
they get them automatically by being born into healthy, wealthy families.
Sure, but Dusty, why should other people have to pay for that stuff, dude?
Because we want society as a whole to be better, because it benefits all of us.
I don't know. Not the wealthy people that have to pay for that. I don't think.
I am a very wealthy person, okay? I live in a city that has a very fucked school district in North Omaha. It's where all of our black people live, okay?
Dusty, look. No. Look, the point I'm trying to make is say I make $1.5 million a year, okay?
Okay.
And that money was hard earned by me, okay? I worked to get that money, okay? And what you say is that you just want to give all of these people contraception so they don't have to take any like you devalue what I've worked for by making that original statement, dude. It's like a horrific, horrendous devaluation of what these people have worked for. If for you to just turn it around and say like, oh well, sorry, these other people, you have to take responsibility for these other people now because they can't do it themselves and go on and buy condoms. Like it's flawed, dude.
Okay, would you rather be in the top 0.1% earners in Romania, or would you rather be in the top 5% earners in the United States of America?
In America.
Because America is a better place all around, except for our internet speeds, right? Yes. America is just all around a much better country, right? When you make your country better, right, everybody is lifted. Everybody is doing better, okay? Going back to my earlier example, if I could get taxed a little harder or whatever to put more money to help the North Omaha school districts, right? These are kids that are going to, one, grow up and maybe become my employees because now they're getting educated instead of being criminals or dropping out of a shitty high school, right? So now I've got larger people. Now I've got a larger base to get successful employees from. Let's say that I work in building homes. Now because they went to a good school and they got a good education, now maybe they want to buy a better house. Instead of living in a shitty $60,000, $70,000 shack, maybe they want to go to another part of Omaha and buy buy a $250,000 house. Or maybe they want to develop that part of the city. Now, as a construction worker, I've got more work over there. I can go, and as a result of the people earning more money, what if I own a different type of business that sells musical instruments, right? Since they've got so much money and expendable income now, maybe I go in and open a shop over there as well, right? The entire city grows. Every single facet of your city gets better when the lowest people come up. But maybe you want to open a store over there to sell some type of specialty product that they wouldn't have been able to afford before. Maybe you save money on your law enforcement system because now instead of locking people up and paying to keep them in jail, now these same people are getting an education and contributing to society in other ways. Like, there's a million different external ways that we benefit from people doing better rather than just having to punish people for fucking up.
Sure. Yeah, I think so. I agree with you. But I just don't know what extent do people need
to whatever
take
extent they
responsibility,
need to. But if nobody takes responsibility for anything, you never burden somebody with this expectation to overcome their environment unless they're poor. You notice that, right? That if we treated middle class people the same way we treated poor people, middle class people would hate their lives. If you had some kid that was getting his BS in school and you're like, okay, so what are you going to do now? You're going to go get your master's or your PhD? You're going to get a job earning fucking $70K a year? That's what your parents did. What the fuck is wrong with you, you miserable fucking failure? You're going to have a fucking kid now? You're not even making six figures?
No,
and
but
you're going to have a
Jesse,
kid? What's wrong with you? You're so
argument.
worthless, right? Whereas you do the same thing to a poor person. Like, what? You're from a single parent household and you're not even going to finish high school? What's wrong with you, dude? You don't even know who your dad is? Why don't you rise above? Why don't you be way better? Like, but why would you expect so much more out of that entire group of people? And then for middle class people, you just kind of expect them to sit on the path that they're given and not rise above at all.
But that's Destiny. This is like a bad argument. It's like a legitimately bad. Like your point earlier about a family that makes $400,000 versus $40,000 was like actually a good point that I actually never thought of before. But I feel like this argument's really bad because you just have like a decent, a fair quality of life at middle class. Like, it's not bad or anything. You like can live pretty comfortably.
Yeah,
right?
I don't disagree with that.
Okay, so but then you made that statement earlier.
Do you play like role-playing games? Have you ever played like an RPG like
well,
XCOM or D&D or anything?
Huh? Say that again?
You ever play like XCOM or D&D or Final Fantasy Tactics or anything? Or
I only play Hearthstone.
Okay, hold on. Give me a second. I'm trying to think of a Hearthstone analogy, okay?
So you made the statement that the middle class, why do we put so much less like personal responsibility on the middle class to rise up to a new higher class than we do the poor to the middle class, right? So the middle class to the high class, the poor to the high class, we have different expectations. And you're saying that that's wrong. But I don't think that you can say that because the quality of life in the middle class is just like fine. It's
I'm not
just like
talking about right
life.
or wrong or good or bad. I'm talking about your expectations and capabilities of humans.
Yeah, and I never said right or wrong or good or bad.
Well, you're saying that it's good to be middle class. Like, these people aren't committing crimes. They're not doing anything bad.
It's fine.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about what people are capable of. That it seems like most middle-class people are only capable of being what they're born into. Most middle-class people don't become rich. The second quintile of people don't all move up to the upper quintile. Upward mobility is pretty restricted in the U.S. Like, there's not this thing where every middle-class person rises above. So it seems like that most of them probably aren't capable of it. So I would surmise that
most of them are comfortable where they are, right? Like,
why? You don't think anybody making $70K a year wouldn't want to make $700K a year?
No, they probably would if the opportunity was just given to them, but they're probably comfortable where they are and they don't feel the need to work super hard to get to that next level.
So I could use that same statement to any poor person that they're comfortable
No,
with.
No, because poor people are vastly more uncomfortable than middle class people.
Okay, but unless a good opportunity is given to them for them to rise above, they're probably not really capable of doing it. The same way as any middle class person probably isn't capable of doing it. Not every middle-class person is going to open a business and become a multimillionaire.
Sure. Destiny, all I'm saying is that the comparison of expectations between the middle class and the low class is completely justified, dude. That's all I'm saying. I just don't think that argument was good specifically. I don't know. But your other argument was good about the people who make $400K versus $40K. I actually didn't know how to respond to that one. I just think there needs to be some level of responsibility, and I understand what you're saying.
I just don't see what the responsibility meme gets us. Why? Can you justify that? There needs to be responsibility. What do you mean by that? Can you explain that?
because if you just hand people things, then it just doesn't.
Okay,
They
you
just
don't agree with that. You don't agree with that statement. Why are you
I
saying
mean,
that?
I agree to it to some extent,
No,
dude.
you
But
don't. Because we just
people-
agreed that if you hand a kid a $40,000 home versus handing another kid a $40,000 home, that the kid with the $400,000 home is going to achieve way more, statistically speaking. So you do agree that handing
like,
people
let's say
something.
let's say this. Okay, so let's say some out of like some family who makes $20,000 a year. Okay, some kid works hard and rises up to the top. Okay,
Yep.
and he ends up making like $150,000 a year. Okay,
Yeah.
and some kid, okay, who's very privileged all of his life, just goes
Goes
by
through,
whatever floats his life. Okay, and he makes $100,000 a year. Okay,
Okay.
um, then that's pushing the personal responsibility meme, is it not? Like,
Wait, what?
what did you say prior to the statement? Sorry, what was your like claim? Is look, you can't just hand people things because they it's
Okay.
just not, you don't like learn hard work. You don't learn how to like
Learn
be
how to
consistent.
what? But that's not. But again, like a lot of middle class people are never tested. You've got people that live successful lives who didn't have to work a single day in college, who had mom and dad pay their entire way through college. You had people whose first cars were $30,000 fucking
but people
Mustangs
who
that
work their
mom and
way
dad
up are
bought
going
for
to
them.
understand. Destiny, people who work their way up are going to understand what hard work is to a much
But
greater
not everybody
extent.
is capable of that.
Okay, sure. I'm not saying that they are, but they're going to understand hard work to a much greater extent than
Yeah, if
the
they
person who
make it,
just
yeah,
float their
sure.
life.
But not
Sure,
everybody
yeah.
can.
Okay, well, but I think we need to push the rhetoric on them to try.
But I don't know if everybody is capable of that. That seems like a really hard thing to do. It seems like it would be much more reasonable to just give them a easy environment to start out with, and then have them be successful, rather than giving them fucked environments. And then
I
telling
don't,
them,
Destiny, right now, I don't think that we're giving anybody an unreasonable environment to start out from, dude.
You don't
Like,
think starting out in a single-parent household with shittier schools, you don't think that might fuck your life up a little bit compared to being...
No, I mean, Destiny, I'm not debating that sucks, dude. Like, that's not good at all. But, like, it's like not like no. I don't think, I think very few people in America are born with like zero chance to make it, dude.
It's
right?
not about
Like,
zero chance to make it. Well, first of all, depending on where you're born, I mean, like, there are probably places in D.C. or Baltimore or Chicago or Detroit where you can be pretty fucked if you're born there. Like, you're pretty fucked, depending on where you are. But, like, there are a lot of people that are born into places
maybe.
where...
I don't know. I don't know what. It's fine. Keep going.
Like, you can be born into some pretty rough circumstances, that, especially like single-parent household memes. Like, you can be born into some pretty rough circumstances where it can be pretty hard to climb out. Like, especially if you've got if crime and shit is like normalized around you, and you've got a lot of friends and family and older friends and shit that are into that shit. Like,
Sure. No, I think, yeah, for sure. It can definitely be hard to like escape your situation, but I think that you have to like push people to actually do that.
all right, I mean, we've already gone through this, so
Destiny, I mean, do you really think it's like a better solution to just like give people everything? You really think that's the better way to do it?
I think that targeting specific problems and giving people the best environment possible is the best way to do policy, because then it seems to produce predictable outcomes, that when people are given a certain set of circumstances, they turn out in predictable ways. So, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, or like, but you devalue the people who worked to get where they are. Dude.
Well, a lot of people, I think, overvalue the fuck out of their own personal accomplishments. Yeah, I do believe that. When you have people that are 21
I knew that,
years
I knew that was
old,
your position. I knew that was your position before I even came on here, honestly. So,
sure.
okay, I don't know, dude. Before all the YouTube memes come up about how I'm pretty privileged, I haven't. We've been talking for an hour, so before they come up, I'm friends with a lot of like very poor people, and I understand like their situation. It's not good. Like, I had a lot of friends who were on food stamps, not to go into like anecdotes or anything like that, but I had a lot of friends who were on food stamps when I grew up, and it was not fun. Like, they had like cereal was their only meal. I didn't even know people were poor for a very long time in my life, like until I was like 10 or 11. Like, I went to my friend's house for the first time, and he only had like a bed in his room, and I had like an Xbox and all of this stuff, and his room was just a bed, and that was pretty fucked up to see, I think. But I don't know, like I felt like pushing him to do the right things and pushing him to like take responsibility for his life was just a better way to do it. I don't know. Like, can you just I don't like why do Democrats have to say that people have like shouldn't be responsible at all? Can you just say that there should be like a tad of
I
responsibility?
just don't
for
understand
people?
what the point of the responsibility meme is. Like, I don't understand what this accomplishes or what it achieves.
I don't, but I don't understand why Democrats can't admit that there has to be like a tad of personal responsibility.
I can't speak for Democrats, but I mean, I can tell you personally that I've asked you 3 times to justify what that means, and you haven't really answered that at all. Like, what does personality or what does responsibility get us? Like, what does that do?
It helps you like learn good moral values. It helps you become successful in life. Like, what do you?
Okay, so
personal-
moral values and success in life seem largely to come from your environment, not from any personal responsibility. So
If I take personal responsibility for my life and I like go about doing the right things and making the right decisions, and what do you mean, dude?
okay, but like if you haven't had to pay a single bill in your entire life until you're like 23 or 24, like how many personal decisions or responsible things did you have to make?
I don't know, a lot, dude. Like you have to go to high school and start by going to fucking school and finishing that.
So like
And
these are your
that's like a
examples of
great-
hard decisions. I had to go to school every day.
Jesse, do you not think a lot of poor people don't finish high school? What do you like? Are you?
Yeah, because their hard decision isn't I have to go to school today. Sometimes it could be my mom doesn't have a fucking car and she has to ride the bus to work and I can only walk or something in my shoes that like leave blisters on my fucking feet because I can't afford you.
And I tell yes, and you have to make the decision to do that. And that is literal personal responsibility. That's what I mean when I say it. Like, does that make sense? Or
It does, but you're giving all the personal responsibility to the poor people. And
yes, but Destiny. Oh my God, dude, we're like running in circles. I don't know. Okay, we can stop talking now. It's fine. I don't know. I enjoyed the conversation.
I guess like this is what it feels like to me, okay? Let's say that
Okay.
we have a really big track, okay? That track is 100 spaces wide. You can fit 100 runners on that track, okay? The left 20 people, okay? They just have to run in a straight line, okay? And the other 80 people have a ton of hurdles set up that they have to jump over, okay? And none of you guys have trained for hurdles, and most of you are sprinters, right? So all of you, the gun goes and you all run, okay? And maybe, like 20 or 30 of the 80 people manage to jump the hurdles and they get to the end and they show up with you. And then you've got the people on the end who never had any hurdles to jump through telling everybody else that they just needed to jump better. Like, why didn't you just get over the hurdles? Like, why didn't you just work harder? Like, what's the big deal? And I'm just looking at those people like, dude, like you didn't have to do shit. Like, you don't know if you would have made it on the same track. You don't know if you would have been able to jump through the same hoops that they did. You don't know if you would have been able to work as hard as that. What right do you have to scream personal responsibility to any individual person who had to do stuff that you never had to do, right? Shouldn't the objective be to remove as many hurdles from people's lives as possible rather than to sit there and just tell them to do something that you don't even know if successful people could have accomplished it?
No, I don't agree with that. I think that like for using your example of 100 runners on the track, okay? I think if you like push the narrative that these people like need to be better, they will become better and they'll make the right decisions. I like if you just remove the hurdles from the track, Destiny, then they'll never learn how to jump over them, dude.
Okay, but the wealthy people never had to learn.
Sure, so life's not fair. I'm not advocating that life's fair at all. Like poor people get fucked, dude. Like, and you have to take. This is just how I see it, dude. I don't know. Maybe this is wrong. Maybe it's like a broken ideal. I mean, I don't know. That's just how I see it. Like, if you remove them, they're never gonna learn, dude. They're never gonna learn how to jump over them.
Okay.
And like, I don't know. Okay.
All right, my dude.
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, Destiny. I'm a 20-year-old kid. I don't know anything, dude. But
It's okay, my dude.
I enjoyed the conversation.
All right, I love you too, buddy. My favorite was I thought that we were going to like when I was younger I was poor or something. I thought that was where we were going. Like, well, when I was younger I was poor, but when he was like, well, when I was younger I had poor friends. Oh shit.